Cool. Hi, guys. I think most of you know, but I'm Sarah from Populist. I'm in Austin, Texas. Like I mentioned, I have 2 daughters. Amelia, she's 5. Zoe is 2.5. My first postpartum experience was something I don't wish for anyone. It didn't sort of appear in terms of my depression and postpartum anxiety, some suicidal ideation until 7 months later. So I, again, didn't know. I just assumed postpartum depression and prepare. Like I just thought everything would be immediate. It wasn't for me. It was really hard and showed up a lot later. But that's why we have Eric to help us all prepare better for this experience. And Eric is the CEO and one of the founders of Mama Meals. And Eric, I will let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sarah. My name's Eric, and I have 3 children now. First postpartum, like you, was really tough. Actually, my wife and I talked about, like, are we even going to do a second? Like that conversation happened. And, we always wanted to have 3 kids, but, we were still having those conversations because of the postpartum experience. Like the birth and everything went, like we were prepared and it was great, but that was really tough. And then the second, we did a much better job specifically with food. That was a big thing. And now through the third here, we're on week 5 is like it's been the easiest one yet. We've got all these resources, all these ideas to share. So I'm really, really stoked to share that. And like I said, Orange County, California, we started Mama Meals after the huge, the first was so hard. And then we started Mama Meals we didn't start Mama Meals. We did all this meal prep for baby number 2. And life was so much easier. And then all these doulas and midwives that we knew were like, this is a business. You guys need to do this. And that was how we started the idea for Mama Meals. And now for baby number 3, we've had a freezer full of Mama Meals.
Nice. Perfect.
Yeah, it's been like, I just pull stuff out of the freezer and heat it up. It's super, super simple. Everything's like way easier. So
perfect.
Yeah, that was 3 kids, Blair, Rory, and now Casey. And just feeling super grateful to be here and share and try to help some people.
Well, congratulations. Someone that recently joined us, Caitlin, she's in Canada and due in 2 days.
Wow. Good luck. You got this.
You got this, Caitlin. So one of the things people were able to do when they registered for the webinar was submit questions ahead of time. And I want to just sort of like jump right into it. So when we think about preparing for the postpartum period, Eric, I know your philosophy is to prepare a little bit earlier before the baby arrives. So can you talk about what that experience was like for you and your family and what you did to help prepare before the baby arrived and sort of like a timeline?
Yeah, totally. I mean, my wife, candidly, she used to be a wedding planner. So she's very much a planner. So she, had a lot of stuff planned out ahead of time. But a couple big things were, we were talking about this before the webinar started was work. Is that I started paternity leave, is what I called it, 7 days before the due date. So that was a big, big shift for us. And I focused on just like really filling my own cup, making sure I was prepared, making sure the house was prepared, making sure there were no to-do lists that were like pending. And, if you have like things like, oh, I got to do this around the house or do that, blah, 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 like that, all that stuff basically stopped. And I really just focused on like being present and being ready for the time. So that when the birth actually happened, which was on the due date, which is super rare, but it was pretty cool. I came just like very prepared, very calm, very confident. And I brought that energy with me into the birth, which I know was like super beneficial. Also,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to go into the food side of it is like, our first birth, we had like no food prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really tough because I went back to work pretty quick and we were very into like clean organic food at the time. And when the baby came, like there's nowhere you can just go to get like super clean organic food. Like there's no delivery, there's no fast food, there's no takeout. Like you basically have to cook that at home. So I had to cook a lot. And for baby number 2, we did all this meal prep, like had a bunch of freezer meals ready. I think we had like 60 meals prepared for baby number 2. Actually, Holly made a little menu for herself, printed it out, laminated it. And so she's sitting in bed like, I'm going to have this today. And like,
That's nice. Eric, please go grab me this from this section of the freezer.
Yeah, like that's almost that detailed, but so I went from having to like cook all this food to not having to cook any of the food, and I was able to be so much more present with the birth. And yeah, in terms of like prep for the birth, it was, a big thing is you can't fill from an empty cup, right? Like as the man, like you have to be the rock. You have to be cared for. You can't be showing up like anxious and stressed and sick or whatever it is. Like you have to be showing up ready to just do everything basically. So, leading up to not just the week before, but like the months before, I was really focusing on myself and, visualizing what I wanted to see and all that good stuff.
Was there anything, so besides like the food preparing before the birth, which we'll get into, of course, postpartum, but was there anything you read? A lot of people here are I think the majority of the people on the line, as far as I can tell, are first-time parents, but was there anything you had to arrange for your other kids? Anything you read? You said you got off all of like your pending to do checklist. So you made like some mental space open for you and your wife. Any other like real specifics that you want to share about what you did before besides meals?
Yeah, great question. We talked to our family and friends a lot leading up to it. Like, hey, can you come in and help out? Right. The big thing is like tap your village if you have a village around you. Right. We're fortunate to have parents close to us and friends. So it was like, the kids can come hang out at your house. Right. You can take them to go do stuff. You know what? On that vein, these last two births, specifically, the first birth, there was no child to bond with before, but like I spent a lot of time really pouring into our other kids before the birth came, like really bonding, showing them a lot of love, spending the time with them so that they felt really full.
Right.
When that shift happened.
Right.
So that was really important. Just like tapping people to do some laundry for you. Like, hey, come vacuum, like take the dogs for a walk. That kind of stuff is like ahead of time. If you can ask people and get them, like everybody wants to help. Right. Like it's that time in life where everybody just wants to be able to help. And I know some people have a hard time asking for help because they're like, oh, I don't want to bother you, or they might feel weird about that. But like I encourage, let that go and ask for the help because they want to help.
Yeah, I do agree that this is like a time in people's lives where your friends and family, if you have them nearby, are looking for a very tangible task to do besides like bringing you a gift. So I think the dog walking is huge. If you have pets, you shouldn't be walking them after you have your baby. And that is such a perfect like household task to outsource to even like your next door neighbor. These people want to help you. So please don't feel like you're burdening anybody. Nobody feels that way. And if they do, then I don't know, this is blunt, but maybe you don't need them as your friend in the first place.
Right.
I mean, this is like a really important moment for you guys. So please don't feel ashamed to tap those around you. I'll share with my second, I invited all of like my closest friends over, and we basically prepped these gallon-sized freezer baggy meals with sort of like the ingredients, the expiration date. I think that's like a nice tip I like to give. Don't write the date that you made the meal, just write the expiration date so you don't have to do any math. We basically made these gallon-sized meals that could go in the crock pot. So that was really nice. Scott and I could just pull one out of the freezer, dump in the crock pot, and then it's ready for dinner and or the next day.
Yeah.
Well, here's a funny question. When you prepare, let me pull this up to the screen. When you prepare meals for the wife, what do you do if she's not in the mood for anything you prepared? But Aaron, is she pregnant? Because that's tough, or is it postpartum? Let's just assume it's postpartum, Eric.
We'll assume postpartum. I mean, like how my brain goes is like, I basically turn into the concierge at a very like high-end like resort or hotel. Like, hey, what do you need? Okay, you're not in the mood for any of this. Okay, what is it? And I'm just gonna do it. Like, what does she want? I would just say, what do you want? And I'll just make it happen. Like I think that's sort of the mentality of that at least I brought into it. And there's no ego in it. Just like like that, those stories of like, well, we have all this food here. Why can't you just eat this? Like that, you just got to let that go. And like, okay, what, you want some obscure thing from something that's like 30 minutes away? Like, okay, like if that's what's gonna do it for you, like, obviously, ladies, if you can eat the food at home, right, that's going to be the easiest thing. But like, I just would say, what do you need? And like, try to make it happen.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. And then just save it for later. The reality is, I don't know, she just may not be hungry.
Yeah.
He's just assuming that will happen. It probably will, because not only are our hormones completely in flux, there are certain foods that are just not appealing. Our bodies have a hard time digesting after birth. I mean, there's so many variables, and there were so many things we weren't able to eat during our pregnancy that we decided to exclude from our diet for one reason or another. So I would just support her and put it in the freezer and pull it out the next day if she doesn't want it right then and there. But yeah, I hate to say it, but you guys are at her service.
You got to do it. You got to do it. There's really nothing else.
Do it.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the questions that came up, and maybe we can talk about this too a little bit, Erin, when we think about like mom's basic needs, but and we're sort of jumping around here. All right, I kind of wanted to talk about some of the postpartum depression stuff, Eric, but I'm going to save that. So since we're on meals, we can sort of stay on that topic. Sure. So the baby is here. Now what? There are a lot of specific tasks that I feel like society has deemed mom tasks. And that was one of the questions that came up in the webinar registration. Like, well, what are mom tasks that my partner can do? And it's like, well, we're not assigning tasks to any gender. They are just household tasks that need to get done. And it's going to be for the dad or the non-birthing partner. And that's just the reality. So what are some things that you did around the house for your wife or your kids after the baby arrived, whether it's sleeping, feeding? Can you just walk us through some of those like real tangible support things that you did post baby?
Yeah. I think before you even get into that, I think a good perspective to have going into this is that like what you do now during this time will set you up for later. Mm-hmm. Like the quicker she heals, the better she feels. All those things are only going to make your life better. It's going to be harder now, but like during postpartum. But postpartum is going to be probably one of the hardest times in your life.
Right.
Just is what it is, right? Yep. So my philosophy going into it was because I always like to make things easier later. I'm trying to do my future self a favor. So my philosophy going into it was like, how can I make her like do nothing? Like, how can she just lay in bed and rest and heal? And how can I like take all of it, which is hard, but like I said, because I was filling my cup and really ready for it, it was like, I just did it, I just did it. So like I did I'm still doing them, all the nighttime diapers. Like if there's a diaper needs to get changed at night, like I'm not letting her do that. I'm just going to do it. All the breakfast, all the kids, all get lunch ready for school, pickups from school, laundry. Like there's a service called Poplin that we use that like, we just leave a giant trash bag of laundry on our front doorstep and somebody comes and takes it and does the laundry and brings it back within a day. Mm-hmm. So that was a great, huge hack for us to not have to do all the laundry. Cause this is our third kid, there's so much laundry to do. But in terms of like, the mom centered tasks, like I would just put that at 0. Right. Like just, it's not forever. Mm-hmm. And the sooner that she can get back and healed, like the sooner that's going to go away. And if you don't do that and she doesn't heal well, that could cause problems later and it's going to make your life suck later. Right. Right. Like there could be more depression that now you're going to have to deal with. There could be physical issues that come up because she didn't heal properly, because she was stressed out and feeling like she needed to do this or needed to do that. Like all that stuff is going to play a role later. Right. So I don't know I just say nothing. Like how can I do everything? Right. Obviously I can't, but
Right.
Yeah, I don't have
I think that helps. I'll share a few things, like specifics that my husband did too, that I think might be helpful to add. So, after both of my kids, I'll just do the first guys because I don't know, the first really sticks out for me for some reason. It was such a different experience, but he made all the meals. Again, we didn't have any other kids at home. It was just our first Amelia. So Scott helped make all of our meals. He always sort of took inventory of my postpartum products so that I didn't have to like reorder things. So it doesn't matter how you deliver, there will be product that you need for like your own personal recovery. So whether that's, all of your period care products, Tux pads, any sprays, lotions, oils, like whatever that looks like for you, toilet paper, like don't let your family run out of like these basic things that you guys need to have around. So he took inventory of that. Again, like the diaper changes, we never ran out of diapers and wipes. I didn't order those for a very long time. He also is very like data driven. So he was in charge of monitoring all of like the wet diapers and poops. We really cared about that with our first baby. We didn't do it so much with Zoe, but I think that a lot of first time parents care about sort of like monitoring those things because your pediatrician will probably ask you at your 6-week appointment or someone might ask you about that. So he monitored and wrote it down, and we didn't use an app. He just kept a note like, in his phone when our daughter pooped and had a wet diaper. So those are like some things that I am so appreciative of. So those, again, hopefully those are helpful. If anyone has any more questions about like physical or actual tasks that your partner can do, those are ones that come to mind right away for me.
Those are good. I remember on our first baby, we did that too, but now it's like I don't care when they're peeing and pooping. Okay, we're fine. Like I'm not gonna.
Right.
I don't care. That was good. And then I think another one is like, she's laying in bed. We followed like the first 40 days principles of like, just stay in bed. For the first week, just try not to get out of bed. I know it sucks. You're probably going to be antsy, but try not to get out of bed.
Right.
And so she was very much like upstairs in bed a lot. And I would just come in and take an assessment of the space, right? Like the trash need to get taken out. Is all of her stuff there? Does she need any water? Like you don't want that space to get like messy and crazy because that affects your mental, right? So I always just tried to keep a very clean and organized as much as I could in there because a lot of just stuff gets thrown on the ground. Things are going everywhere, especially when you have kids and dogs too. Like it was wild this time around. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I remember. I wanted to breastfeed Amelia so bad, and we did for about like the first 6 months, but it hurt so bad in the beginning, and I just didn't think. I was like, "There's no way this is how it's supposed to feel." So that was something else. My husband called our pediatrician. They had lactation consultants on site that you could book an appointment with. So if there are things that your wife or partner are experiencing that she just looks like she is in excruciating pain, whether she's nursing or pumping, or maybe the bleeding is heavier than both of you think it should be, make those calls for her and don't second guess it. It's better just to sort of like have that peace of mind that, okay, actually we're good. Oh, you know what? It's just the latch. You're right. It shouldn't hurt this bad when you're breastfeeding. So again, just all of those things that you won't really be able to anticipate until it's time. Pay attention to those things too, and make those appointments for your partner and call and just like find all the things you can do to just take some mental stress off of her plate because it is, it's so helpful. I also remember one time nursing Amelia and I just was crying because I was so hungry. I was so tired. It hurt. And he like literally, it's so weird to feel like you're the baby, but I sort of felt like I was at some points after Amelia was born. He was like feeding me a hard-boiled egg. And you're so vulnerable, but I just hope none of you guys feel shame. And I hope no partner here feels like they're not above any single task. Like he literally spoon fed me while I was nursing our baby. And it is just a really special, vulnerable, scary time. So you guys will connect in ways you did not ever expect. But I just sort of like to share those things because again, it's hard to picture what that's going to be like until your baby's here, but all these things might come up for you. And just hearing another perspective, I think, is what is going to give you guys the confidence. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to call our pediatrician for this. So anyway.
Totally. Good advice.
I feel like when I asked my mom about like postpartum, she's like, I don't remember. You know, I feel like people like black out these periods of time, which is true, which is why she probably had 3 kids. No offense, Eric. No. But, you know, we have to talk about it before we all forget. So,
yep, I get it.
Anyway, okay. What are some ways? One of the questions I think is nice. It doesn't necessarily relate directly to the mom, but we'll jump back into it. But what are some ways that you liked to bond with all of your kids when they were newborns or babies?
Yeah, good question. Well, like right now, I go. He, when he gets fussy, our newborn, he just loves to go walk around. So I'll go walk around in the front lawn, and I just been walking circles in the front lawn, like feet in the grass. Get some earthing in, get in the sun. It's so crazy. If he's fussy, I go walk outside, and as soon as the sun hits his face, he just quiets. He just gets quiet, and he just sits there and enjoys being outside. So that has been like an awesome one. I love just holding him, and like, they have those, it's like a reaction where they like try to stand up, like, feet out. So I'll like just hold him and let him do his little standing thing. He sits down, and that's a great one. Just having the other kids around too, just really trying to include them, for the people who have other kids, like they're gonna experience some like a shocking change, right? Like to their life, and having them be a part of it, giving them tasks like, hey, you can help do this. Can you get the diaper? Can you bring this in? Like my son, he's 7. I'm like, can you feed the dogs? Can you help with the dishes? Like he seems excited sometimes to be part of helping, as opposed to just being like off in the distance.
Yeah.
But really including the other kids, and just being present, especially if it's your first, like it's so easy to be thinking about other things, right? Like it's so easy to be thinking about work or X, Y, or Z, but like just, turn it off, be present, enjoy the wonder that's right in front of you.
Right.
And it's going to make everything so much easier when you do that, for sure.
And it goes by really fast. I know every single one of you have heard that, but it really does, especially the newborn phase.
Yeah. And I'll say to that too, like it doesn't feel as fast if you're present.
Right.
It can feel like the snap of a finger if you're on your phone scrolling, or you're watching TV and you're, in between doing the other things that you got to do, and you don't just sit down there and just stare at your baby, right? Like it'll feel like it's gone like that. But I've noticed that it doesn't feel like it's like overly fast.
Right.
The more present I am, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. I love that point. Okay. Anything else you have to add? I'd like to do a time check. Like I said, these go by so fast. We only have 15 minutes. So if you guys have like really specific questions, you're like, I wish they would touch on this, or I need to know this, please don't hesitate to put it in the chat. We talk a little bit about like some postpartum depression stuff that I think we need to touch on. Is there anything else you want to add, Eric, about just like overall support for the mom?
Like I'm just thinking about what I have just recently gone through, and like one thing is like you'll never regret spending extra money on things that give you more time. Like regardless of your financial situation, like obviously you got to have some money in the bank, right? But like I look back on, for example, my dogs had fleas this time around. It's summer in Southern California. I feel like I don't know how it happens, but they get freaking fleas. It's so annoying. And I'm not giving them the meds. I made like an agreement with myself. Like I'm done with that. So I had to wash them a lot. So that's a big task, right? To wash they're small dogs, but still, and I look back and I wish I would have spent more on like a dog grooming, like a mobile dog grooming thing to come up, because I would have gotten more time. So that is one. And then another thing too is like, you can like I got in this almost robotic groove of just like handling everything, like from diapers, all, you know, doing the diapers at night, wake up, get the kids ready, take them to school, come back, you know, I got to do the dogs, I got to make the food, make lunch for Holly, I got to do this, I got to clean, there's laundry, there's this, there's that, and like I almost got into this like robotic state where I totally forgot about Holly. And I totally forgot to just be present with her. I would come and bring her breakfast in bed, and then I would leave to go just do the dishes and get the kids ready. And I totally forgot to just like sit there with her in bed, you know? And it got to a point where the tears came, and it was just like, I just want you to hang out with me. And I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to just be there. And that's what she wanted, was that quality time. And so I had to really like check myself on that. Like the house being clean isn't that important. It's more important to me, but that's not the most important thing. So that was a big lesson. And yeah, you'll never regret taking more time off early, like from work. Like I feel super fortunate that like I didn't have to ask anybody to go on paternity leave. I just set it up so that I was able to do that. But if you have to like do whatever you can to like, at the very least, reduce the amount of work you're doing leading up to it, like half time, quarter time, whatever it is, like anything you can to be more ready yourself, you will never regret doing that. So yeah, big point.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a lot of people agree with that sentiment. And it's a really great reminder to just, yes, you guys are going to have this massive checklist of things to do. But like Eric just said, don't forget to just sit with your wife and be with her, because it's such a beautiful transition, but it's so isolating and lonely. And when you are up in the middle of the night feeding your baby and no one else that you think in the world is awake, you just feel like very alone. I do think, Eric, like what a great lesson you were reminded of. And thank you for sharing that. I think for all the partners on the call, you know, they just said great reminder. That's good to know. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go into just quickly a little bit about postpartum sort of depression and baby blues. We have other webinars. I am not an expert to speak on all of the symptoms, what to look for. I have like no education or training in that, but we do have webinars where we've had experts, therapists come on to talk about what that looks like. So I can include those links in the post-webinar email if you guys want to go hear some of those people speak. But from my own experience, I just want to remind all the partners on the call and the dads, if you could just carve out like 30 minutes to go educate yourself on what does the baby blues look like? What are some symptoms my wife might display? And the same for postpartum depression and anxiety. So mine did not appear right away, but some questions that my husband started to ask me like 4, 5, 6 months after Amelia was born was, do you feel connected to her? Are you experiencing any joy? And a lot of the times my answer was no. I didn't feel any joy. I felt so, I knew I was a good mom, but I just didn't really feel like I was connecting on a way that the world makes you think you will. I wasn't meeting my own like basic needs. Like I stopped, like washing my face. Like that is something I've done my whole life, like religiously. I never would fall asleep without washing my face. But then I suddenly sort of like stopped taking care of myself in such a basic way. I had to commute an hour to work after I went back to maternity leave. So I was alone a lot in the car with just like my own thoughts, which I don't recommend. It's just like a really lonely, scary place to be. And so he observed all of those things. I also started to have like some physical symptoms of severe stress. I had perioral dermatitis. I started to get bumps on my hand. There were just things happening to me physically and internally that were so abnormal for me. And it was no longer just like this, her hormones are out of whack, right? Like, I just don't think any of us should dismiss any of these symptoms that we start to see in our partner if they don't seem like them or themselves. So really pay attention to your wife, what she's experiencing, and not just the first 6 weeks. I'm talking those first 6 months in that first year, because it isn't always an immediate onset. And one of the things I share with Eric that I'll share with you guys on the call is when I finally had the courage to share with my husband what was actually happening internally. I remember the first time I shared with him, I had this one afternoon where I was driving to work, Austin to San Antonio. I'm on I-35. If any of you are from Texas, it's like the worst freeway ever. But I really couldn't see my way out of the situation I was feeling like I was in. And I thought to myself, God, I wonder what would happen if I just like hit the car in front of me. Which is like a very scary thought to have. I never actually wanted to hurt myself. I couldn't see a way out of how I was feeling. And so when I finally had the courage to tell my husband that, the first thing he did was he sat with me, we cried together, but I was so thankful because he was the one that said, okay, I know a few people I'm going to reach out to that can help us find a therapist. Like, he took me finding help off my plate. I don't know if I actually would have like sought out help myself. So I was so thankful for that. Such like, what a beautiful gift he gave me and our daughter at the time. So I like to share that story with people, even though it's like always makes me nervous. I'm kind of shaking, but this is real life. And I just encourage you guys to pay attention to what's happening to her and don't lose sight of it. And if she needs help, go find it with her or for her and make her that first appointment. And just, I mean, what a beautiful way to show up for your family. So I'll stop there, Eric, but that's just a story I just think is really important that I can finally share like 2 years later. Actually, sorry, that was with Amelia. So 5 years later.
Yeah. Gosh, thanks for sharing that, Sarah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's important for people to just hear, you know, sometimes we can feel so isolated in our culture is sort of kind of gotten away from the village, right? We used to have all these people around us. You would have like, you know, moms and sisters and friends, and like there would just be like this, you know, outpouring of love and support, and like that culturally has like disappeared in many ways. And I think that's probably one of the you know, underlying reasons for this sort of surge in the depression, especially this time. Like that's, you know, you got the hormonal changes obviously, but like, gosh, you have a family now.
Right.
And you have just like almost the weight of the world, right? And you have this like little human that you need to, like, you're now responsible for. And it's just like, it used to be, I think, a lot more, I don't want to say easier, but like, I don't know, manageable. Like it was a lot more normal.
It was a lot more normal, but also we just didn't have this type of access to, I also feel like social media makes it seem one way. And then when you don't experience it that way, you're like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
When in reality, you're definitely the majority. Like what we see on social media is absolutely the minority, and or may not even be the truth of what that person's experiencing. So yeah, it's just like so strange. Also the first 40 days book that Eric mentioned earlier encourage you to get off social media for 40 days, like unplug. Do not be influenced by other people's like immediate post-birth stories. But I love that part of that book. It's like literally don't go online.
No, it's not worth it. It's really not like that. What is it? What's the saying? Comparison is the thief of joy, right? Yeah. It's all like, and I think you nailed it too. Like it could just be complete farce, right? It could just be a total show and not reality at all. But that's what they think is, you know, the message that they want to project. Right. But that vulnerability that you shared right there, that's the real deal, you know. And I think, you know, like I said, thanks for sharing that. And then for the, you know, for the dads out there and going through this, like, yeah, Holly's experienced depression and like on and off throughout our whole, like since we've met. Mm-hmm. And you know, I think one of the most important things for, you know, for the I guess masculine energy to do is to just be that rock too. You know, like you have to if those like difficult emotions come up, if you're sort of like overcome by them and then you start getting afraid and you get anxious, like you're like, I don't want to say dead in the water, but like, man, that's going to make everything so much harder. But just knowing that like you are that immovable rock, like you will handle anything and you will get through it. Like having that faith and that trust is massive, and it's going to then project onto her too. And then I think we were talking about this a little bit. Don't try to fix.
Yeah.
I'll be the guilty party on that one. You could ask Holly, like, oh, just, try to fix it. No. Don't. There's no fixing that. To fix it is like to just be present with it, to be empathetic, to like experience it, and then you come out with her. Right? That's got to be the only thing you can do. But to try to like change her perspective, or to think about all the things you could be grateful for, or any of those like just thoughts that might come up that you think might help, not actually helping.
Right.
So I think that's more of like that village could be there to help with that. But yeah, that's just my kind of high level thoughts on that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we've got 4 minutes. Any questions, let us know. One of the questions that I thought was really interesting, really quick, Eric, that we got in the webinar registrations was, let me see, where did it go? How can I help my wife even though I know she won't let me? So this reminds me of like my older sister, who's like extremely type A. You don't want anyone helping with the baby, has a very particular way she likes things done. I mean, down to how you load her dishwasher. I mean, what would you say to that person?
Well, it's funny. I didn't think of it. This just came up to me now. Is first I would check your perspective on that.
Mm-hmm.
If you know right now that she won't let you help, then you're right. You know what I mean? But if you sort of let go of that story leading up to it, and you're just like, I wonder if she's going to let me help, you're going to have, at least you're not bringing that energetic, like, judgment on her to that thing. And then she'll probably be more likely to let you help. And if she, very type A, like Holly's very type A personality as well. But she lets me help. Like she knows, like, I'm not gonna, if she wants something done a certain way, I'm like, hey, okay, fine. Like, especially postpartum, not postpartum, I'm still gonna, we all have our boundaries, right? But yeah, I would say just, don't assume it, right? Just show up with an open heart, do what you can. If she's not gonna let you help, just help yourself. You're only going to be able to pour more from your cup that's then full, I guess would be yeah.
Cool. All right, you guys, thank you all so much for being here. All the things we talked about and some resources will be in that post-webinar email. I hope you guys all feel a little bit better about this next phase you're about to enter. It is very hard and scary, and it's stressful, but it's also like one of the most amazing things you guys will ever experience. And I think I speak for myself and Eric that we're both rooting for you guys and wish you guys the best. And Eric, you can reach out to him. I'll make sure you guys have his contact information too. If you are like, oh shit, that one thing Eric said was so helpful, what was it? Reach out to him. Okay. He's been through this 3 times. So he's a great resource for all the dads.
Totally. I'm there to help anybody in that way. Like that would be like fun for me to do. Not fun, but like I would enjoy giving back in that way for sure.
Awesome. All right, you guys, thank you so much, and happy Friday, and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
See you guys.